lounging, son.
Welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name's Ryan, and today I'm going to be talking about a Simpsons comic, which I don't know how I've gone this long on the channel and never mentioned the Simpsons comics because they played a huge part in my comic book reading, especially when I was younger. Obviously, Bongo Comics Group is the publisher at the time for Simpsons comics. They haven't done anything in a very long time. I know that it was like maybe 5-6 years ago that they officially stopped publishing. I could be wrong. It might have been longer, but they did a bunch of great stuff where there was the Simpsons comics. They had Bart Simpson Comics, Bart Man, which is I used to get Itchy and Scratchy. I think I know they did Futurama at some point. I think they even did SpongeBob at some point too. I mean, Simpsons have been around for season like 34 or something. I'm not sure at this point, but it was cool to kind of get the comics at this point because I think it was probably the height of their popularity. It was everywhere. There was lunchboxes, toys, video games. The show was super popular. All the guest stars they would get. And within that show, Bart had a comic book that he read, right? Radioactive Man. And it even says it at the top. This is Bart Simpson's favorite comic book. The date here is November 1952. You can't see that probably because it's kind of tiny on the camera, but it was cool because they did this 6-issue series of Radioactive Man. I think they did more issues later on, but at that point I had stopped reading the Simpson comics for whatever reason. Each issue, like this is issue 1, but then the second issue jumps and it's like issue 88, right? So like they kept jumping from decade to decade until it got to the 90s. And it was cool because it was like, okay, there's all these adventures that obviously took place before. Matt Groening will call that out in the intro, but I love this one because it's a glow-in-the-dark cover, and I think you can kind of see, based on here, like the line work of his skeleton inside. It's just such a super fun comic. Matt Groening talks about it. Be on the lookout for second issue, right? 88 from 1962. And start saving your money because if the Radioactive Man comic book experiment works out, we'll be filling in the missing issues over the next several decades. And just think how confused the price guides are going to be. I love that he calls that out. But it's awesome, dude. It's like, to me, it was a no-brainer. Like, obviously, like, if you're going to do comic books, why not do the comic book that exists in the universe of The Simpsons? So, really cool series. For some reason, I don't know where my issues went, so I had to rebuy this one. But I definitely am going to seek out some of the other ones. I know they've gone up in price because of their scarcity. But we get Steve Vance on script and layouts. Bill Morrison. That name is synonymous with some really great comic books. He was running Mad magazine for a little while, a few years back. And he does the finished art. And we got Cindy Vance on co-plot and colors. So we're going to get the origin of Radioactive Man. And it's been so long since I read this that I forgot a lot of what took place inside. But it's funny that there's so many different superhero origins within Radioactive Man's origins. It's not like a straight one-for-one of anybody. Like, even the cover, you see it kind of like reminds you of Hulk, right? Like, this is the plume of smoke that comes up when the Hulk is born, right? After the gamma bomb goes off. So, we're met with Claude Kane III. He's a rich playboy, so kind of a play on Bruce Wayne. But his dad is still alive, so it's not the Batman origin, right? And he goes, and his dad's a famous physicist. So that's going to tie into the Hulk. And, his woman, his love interest is a reporter. Kind of connects with Superman. So it's all these different ones kind of coming to a head and meshing them up. He sees this, like, and he asks his girlfriend, to go on a date. And she's like, she does not really like him. She'll do whatever she can to get out of it. She even says, you'll never amount to anything. You're just a frivolous socialite. As he's at this nightclub, he hears this weird conversation taking place. But he's not even like worried about that. He's just like, oh man, that reminds me, I haven't got my allowance this week. So he's just such an idiot. And just, again, like, no care in the world, no sense of responsibility. So as he's going to get his allowance, these guys come to steal this bomb. Everything's starting to collide. The roads close. What is he going to do? He gets stuck. Maybe he can get help in this little town. So he goes and he's like, oh, there's no sign. It must be a ghost town. And he completely overlooks the sign that says danger, nuclear test site, stay away. So he keeps going in, and we get this clock in the corner that's counting down to when this bomb's going to go off. literally called Mega Bomb, and he sees us at the top, so he's like, oh no, I gotta get out. So he's gonna be like, oh, I'll go behind those rocks. Gets caught on the barbed wire, and then he gets exposed to this radiation as the bomb goes off. This is what's really funny, is like he immediately, his body is ripped. He's like this skinny kind of nothing before. He's more worried about his new tux going, and then he's like, what's that on my head? And a shrapnel is embedded in his head, and it's in the form of a lightning bolt, which is, I don't know, it's just so fucking funny. And so he's like, he has to get his car out of the sand. He realizes how strong he is. He's like, oh, I've become a radioactive man. And just like this, this old time corny like dialogue, jumping jeepers, I can fly. And then he realizes that it's his dad's mega bomb that gave him the powers. He's gonna go show his dad and Gloria, his love interest, and how impressed they'll be. And as he swoops down, he crashes into his car, so the top of the convertible has now becomes this like makeshift costume, so it's hiding his identity. And he takes these guys out, realizes bullets can't hurt him, and he's got to figure out a way to cover up that thing in his head, because he doesn't want anybody to worry, especially Gloria. So he puts his hat on, comes in. They think he's responsible for saving them, but then he realizes that these guys, knowing his identity, they're going to come after his loved ones, so he is now going to pretend like he didn't do anything, and this is where Radioactive Man is born. And then, again, this I think this image is like straight from a Superman Neil Adams image, if I remember correctly, not sure. But then we jump straight into another story, and this was very common in the old comics too, the Golden Age, so especially Golden Age. Like, you'd get multiple stories within, like they weren't 22-page stories or 24, 26, anything like that. They were like 8 to 10 pages. And now we find him fighting against Dr. Crab and his Comics. And then we get the birth of like his secret lair, which is just some architectural model that he sees. This just saying that it'll make a keen secret base, and he knows the perfect location for it. So he takes it and then models his secret headquarters after it, but then realizes he didn't build a door, so he just crashes through. He's just sitting there playing cards with himself, and then he has a thing-to-do list: end worldwide communist conspiracy, wipe out crime, discover safe way to remove lightning bolt from head, pick up tux from cleaners. It's just so funny. And then we get it's this basically a parallel to like William Gaines, right? But this guy's called William Mames, and it's talking about the horror comics and this fight against comic books and how they're ruining the youth. So it's completely talking about the Comics Code Authority and the birth of it and the fight against comics within this context of Radioactive Man. And it's so awesome to see this. And like, that's kind of like in the back while he's fighting against Dr. Crab and his comics. And this is a poster. I'm not going to tear it out, but... And then we get the first hint of Fallout Boy, which becomes Radioactive Man's sidekick, and his name's Ron Rutledge. And it talks about how he's an orphan now, and his parents and his twin brother were lost, and thinking like, oh, maybe you could be a good influence on him. He's like, oh yeah, maybe some other time, I gotta go. And again, he's just like always disappointing, right? Kind of a doofus of a hero. Another comic book trope from back then: everything is large and fucking, got a giant record, giant bowling pin, giant shaving mechanism too. So just another fun story. Ends up saving Ron Rutledge, and then we will see him, come into in the next issue. Like, I think he already has Fall Out Boy with him. He's talking with Radioactive Man, talking about his comic books, and he's aghast at this. He's like, this is terrible. What self-respecting comic book publisher would print such ghastly images for children to see? And this is a riff on all the EC comic books. So, again, just completely playing into that and kind of almost in a way breaking the fourth wall, because it's talking about something that really did happen, but you're doing it through the context of this comic book and doing it in a comedic way. So very fun. Again, we even get the courtroom. We even have the connection of Mames and Crab working together, and then that's how he takes down the publisher. And then we see that the guy fighting against William G. Maines, right, is this other guy. He happens to be another publisher. So that was his plan, was to just take him out so that he could dominate the comic book market. So funny, dude. And we see Ron dumping his comics. From now on, I'll only read CCCP approved comics. Good boy. That's the first step to a cleaner, healthier America. And then we end it. We get an itchy, scratchy, like I said, Simpson Comics ads in the bottom. And this is like really like early days of the Simpson Comics, because this is only issue 2 that's coming out next month. So they launched pretty quickly with the subsequent titles. Get a cool letters page, with some fan art. Get the Bartman comic, which was another one that I loved. Definitely gonna have to rebuy, because again, I don't know what happened to it, but seek out this one too, because this one was a great one. Even the fake ads on the back, I love it. But great issue. If you can find these Simpson comics, especially I would say the early comics, there's been a lot of great stuff to come after that too. The Treehouse of Horror was an anthology book that gets so much great talent on it. Sergio Aragonis would do stuff. Jim Mafu did a story. So these comic books are definitely worth picking up, definitely worth checking out, and I will definitely be doing some more Simpson Comics episodes in the future. So hope you dug that. Make sure you check out the rest of the vids on the channel. Like, follow, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you're notified every time a new vid drops. And on that note, I'm out.